so the first thing we're going to start off with, the peanut balls, right? 2 little lacrosse balls, duct taped together, work great for working up and through these traps and along the spine. So we're going to start up in your traps and for your T-spine. So each one of these balls are going to be to the side of your vertebrae or your spine. So what we're going to do is just get these positioned on the floor, okay? Try to get that lined up where we want it. We're going to lay back, get that up into our traps. So from there I'm going to bend my knees and bring those up, and then just bring my arms up overhead and sit in this position. Okay, you can move these by just kind of using your feet to push yourself down, lower along your spine, okay? Once you've sat in this overhead position for a while, we can also work into these. Do some snow angels, do some diagonals, give yourself a big bear hug, of the rib grab, and kind of work through that area. Okay, so that's the trap and T-spine. From there, so these lacrosse balls are a really nice tool. I'm actually going to use this to roll out and work on my heels and the balls of my feet. So this is just going to help loosen up, I mean, not only through your feet, but into your calves, all the way up to your hamstring and your low back. I'm just going to spend about a minute kind of rolling through the arch of that foot, rolling through my heel, kind of trying to really get in there and dig that and loosen that up a little bit. After about a minute, I'll just go ahead and switch sides, switch feet. Put my shoe back on. So now that we've got our feet loose, the calf thing that we're going to work on, I call this the bone saw calf smash. We're going to use a foam roll for this. And essentially what we're doing is we're going to make a calf sandwich. So I'm going to kind of turn to the outside meaty portion of my front of my leg and get that angled there. And then I'm going to take my other leg, my shin bone, and position that into my calf. So I'm using that shin bone to kind of push and get to my calf. Now as I sit back more, that's going to put more pressure in there to get into those knots. Or you can kind of come forward to kind of gauge that. So I'm basically making an X with my calf, so you can kind of see that. And then I can work a little lower my calf by just repositioning my top shin. Okay, so again, one more time the setup. Turn my bottom leg kind of out into that meaty part. I'm going to take my shin and bring that shin into my calf. And then as I sit back into it, I put more weight into that. I'm able to dig into that calf, as well as the front part of my leg. So that's the bone saw. Now that we have our calves worked out, our feet worked out, just kind of going to general hit our legs a little bit. I just want to work, I'm going to use the foam roll to work through my quads. So in our quads, right, talk about it now, we've got kind of this middle part of our quad, the inner and the outer. So when I'm using this, I like to just kind of use the end of the foam roll. And I'm going to start just that middle part. I'm going to go straight down on that. I'm going to start up from the top, just get my hands on my forearms, my feet back, and I can just kind of work on rolling right through the middle of that. If I find a sore spot, I can kind of sit and roll on that. Kind of bring my leg up and down and floss through it, or just kind of sit and try to relax into that. Once I'm done with there, I'm going to roll over and work the outer part of my thigh. So I'm going to keep this bottom leg straight, cross that top one over, and now I can use my foot and my forearm to just kind of push and work through the outer part of that quad. Okay, and then we can finish that up by hitting the inner part. And with that, I'm just going to turn the foam roll so it's about 45 degrees to my body. I'm going to open up my hip so that my foot is flat on the ground. And then again, just get my arms at 90 degrees and I can use that to kind of pull and roll through this inner quad. So I'm going to take a picture around kind of here. You can see the position of my leg. Foot's flat to the ground. And I've just opened up that hip. And I want to work on making sure that I'm rolling and getting all the way down to the bottom right above my knee. Okay, so again, you can kind of find those sore spots and kind of roll back through it. Maybe add a little range of motion, right? Or once you find one of those sore spots, just kind of try to sit on it and relax. Okay? So, inner, outer, mid part of our quad. Next, we're going to kind of stretch and open up our hamstrings a little bit. So I'm going to use a band for this. If you don't have a band, you can use a belt, you can use a jump rope, anything really that we can kind of attach to your foot and pull on. So I call this the 4-way hamstring stretch. I'm going to get the band just kind of around the ball of my foot. Opposite leg straight, I'm going to push that into the ground, and then I'm going to extend and keep my knee straight and lay all the way back. And depending on your range of motion, we're going to go ahead and pull this leg up. So I want my knee to stay, it's not locked out, there's a soft bend in it, but I'll make sure it's not bending a lot. So that's straight, my opposite leg is flat on the ground right there. So I'm going to hold this for probably about 30 seconds. Once I get a little bit more range of motion, then I can usually take that a little bit further. Once we're done with that, we're going to cross this over top. So this is where the 4-way comes in. That's the first way. Now I'm going to cross this over top, keeping my shoulder blades flat on the ground. And this is going to stretch right through the side, kind of through that IT band, through our medial glute. So same concept, about 30 seconds, then we can stretch it a little bit further typically. From there, I'm going to bring this and open this up and come this direction. Gives us a little different stretch. I feel this through my low back on this opposite side. And then stretch my hip. I'm going to bend that knee and kind of pull that knee into my armpit. And stretch right through there. Alright, so that's 4-way hamstring stretch. Straight up. Cross it over, bring it to your armpit, stretch up, open that hip. Next, I want to show you kind of how we can stretch out your hip flexors and your quads. So I call this the couch stretch. I'm going to grab an ab mat to do this, show you how to do it against the wall. It gets the name couch stretch because you can do this on your couch as well, kind of resting your knee on that couch cushion and hooking the back of your foot up over the top of your couch. But I'm going to position this against the wall, just about a foot out from the wall. I'm going to bend that knee and get my foot back up against the wall, and then I'm going to sit up into this. So if I like to imagine if I'm wearing a belt, I'm going to push my belt buckle to the sky. So I feel that stretch through my hip, as well as all the way down through the front of that quad. If I want to get a little bit deeper, I'm going to raise that arm. Now I'm feeling that more through my psoas, a little bit more through my hip. And I can even kind of rotate side to side a little bit with that. Okay? So obviously then, after about 30 seconds to a minute, we're going to switch sides. Just trying to think if we've hit everything. I guess probably the last thing that we want to cover is just kind of how to stretch the calf out. We're going to use the wall again for that. Two ways to hit the calf. I guess kind of we're going back to anatomy. We got this top part of your calf, it's called your gastrocnemius. Lower part of your calf, called your soleus. We need to kind of stretch those a little bit slightly different to hit both parts of that. So I'm just going to use the wall or anything flat that I can kind of pull on. What I'm going to do is get my foot. So angle up against the wall. You can use a step, use a wall. And I'm going to kind of push my hips and lean forward and lean into this. I'm driving with my hip, okay? So this is going to stretch that top part, that gastrocnemius. So again, after about 30 seconds of holding this, you should probably be able to push a little further, get a little closer into that wall. Once we're done with that, what we're going to do is bend our knee. You might have to reposition your foot a little bit, but as you bend that knee, now we're going to shift that stretch down into that soleus, that lower part of your calf, kind of down through your Achilles tendon and your heel. And we're going to hold that for about 30 seconds. So again, we'll switch feet, get our foot set up against the wall, lean into that, push your hips forward into it, so keep that chest up. Hold that for about 30 seconds to a minute, and then we're going to go into that bent knee position, pushing your knee forward, feeling that down through my Achilles and my soleus right there. All right, and after that, we are